When you were at home watching the Combine last week, you may have noticed a couple familiar faces ominously lurking in the background on your TV. That's right, the NFL graciously allowed me and EJ to be on the field once again for all the drills, right up there in the action, about 10 to 15 feet away from all these players as they were going through the most important job interview of their life. And while we were out there for those 4 pivotal days, a question started to form in the back of our minds. How much of this actually matters? I mean, sure, the 40 is important, and so is the 10-yard split, and the vert, and the broad, and the 5-10-5, and the 3-cone, and the field drills, and the bench, and the interviews, and the medical. I mean, it's all important to a degree, but in a modern technological landscape that is aided by AI and by computer vision and models upon models upon models that can effectively predict who's going to be good in the NFL, how much weight do these old school numbers and old school measurements really carry anymore? That is what today's show is about. So if you're into the ultra nerdy niche that is how analytics impacts NFL draft season, this is the episode for you. If you've never seen our show before, we talk about a lot of nerdy things when it comes to the NFL and college football, so make sure to like and subscribe if you want more. And with that, let's get to it. Welcome back to the Bootleg Football Podcast. I'm Brett Coleman. That's EJ Snyder. We are fresh off a 9-day excursion to Indianapolis, Indiana, a city that seems purpose-built to host the NFL Combine. EJ, my friend, have you recovered?
I have not, but I'm working on it. I've started sleeping again, and that is a tremendous boost. I have my voice back a little bit. For those of you that watched the Underdog pod that we did with Hayden, I did not sound like myself. It sounded like an overdub. That's actually my voice after 3 days at the NFL Combine. So I got a little bit of my voice back. I got a couple of good nights of sleep under my belt, and I'm ready to talk about what we saw because we saw a lot while we were in Indy.
And I will say, before getting to experience the drills from the field level, I don't think I had an appreciation for how valuable that was actually going to be, because normally I just watch them on TV, and you can kind of see a difference, right, in how players go through the drills one after another back to back. Those differences are way more pronounced in person, more pronounced than I ever thought they would be. And in some cases, they were downright dramatic. And I don't want to over-index on the Combine, because I think today's whole show is about why you should, or in most cases shouldn't, over-index on the Combine and how much it actually matters. But I got to say, my opinions on many, many, many players in this class, when seeing them go back-to-back with their contemporaries, were kind of just altered completely. You know, it's almost like I got an entire new layer of context to their tape and to their measurements and everything like that. And I feel like because of that, my rankings this year are going to be very, very different than either A, everybody else we know in this industry, and B, probably different than I would have done them in the past too, just because we get to add this extra layer of context to it. But I got to say, I was really, really taken aback with how big a difference it made.
Tremendously valuable separator for me as I go to the Combine, having watched about 135 prospects, which is not even all the prospects at the Combine, but being able to watch the same players run through the same drills, and this one's going to sound weird, from different angles. We got better at where we put ourselves on the field this year. I certainly did from last year. Last year, we were just kind of figuring everything out and being down there and trying not to get run over. This year, watch one drill from one angle, move yourself to a different angle, watch all the players run through the drill back to back to back very quickly from a different angle, and really be looking for, I want to see that. I want to see them plant and drive. I want to see them catch and turn. I want to see them, flip their hips and move. I want to see their eyes. I want to see their feet, whatever it was. And to be able to do that with groups of players who you have in your mind to be similar on that first watch of film, and then watch them go back to back, you can say, that's not the same. That's better. That's worse. And then you'll, go to the next drill and it'll flip. Slot receivers and outside receivers don't need the same skills necessarily. And you will see it throughout those drills. That guy's good at that. That guy is not good at that. Same thing with tackles and guards, defensive ends and edges. Like, it just goes and goes and goes. And as we were, pretty much constantly moving down on the field, gathered so much information. I feel the same way you do, that when we get to really trying to break that tie for a three-way deadlock at cornerback between 8 and 11, we'll go back to those drills and think, well, as a slot, I like him. As a zone corner, I like him. As a man corner, I didn't see what I needed to see to make me feel good about that, so that's where I'm going to put him.
And something I've also really grown an appreciation for is something that teams have been doing for a while now, and that is separating out time speed with game speed, because they're two very different things, right? And game speed's always been kind of hard to quantify, especially game speed in pads. But now with the next gen stats kind of integration into the combine, and there's actually a website called Combine IQ. It's publicly available, and you can see in the chip data, because all these guys are wearing chips when they're going through combine drills over the last 3 years, you can see their speed as they're going through the drills and doing actual football stuff, not just running a 40, right? And you can see the difference between guys who, understand how to do track and field, i.e. run a quick 40, versus guys who actually know how to do these drills at top speed and be comfortable running at top speed, like say, in a gauntlet drill. And just kind of as a quick example, I'll use Luther Burden, who I did not think had a particularly good combine. He ran like 4.42 in the 40, but then when you're looking at the gauntlet, he was one of the only receivers. He was like bottom 4 in speed through the gauntlet. He was one of the only ones that was under 17 miles an hour. I think he hit like 21 miles an hour in the 40, something like that. Like he was top 4, I'll say, in the 40-yard dash as far as top speed, and bottom 4 in the gauntlet. And then you're going through, go route top speed, he was bottom 4. If you're going through dagger route top speed, he was bottom 6. All the drills, like Luther Burden just wasn't really moving as quick as, say, like Jimmy Horn, who was tops in most things. Tez Johnson ran a low 4.5s, but he was top speed in the go route. And you felt that on the field. And I remember saying to you, I was like, God, Luther Burden looks like he's just running in mud compared to everybody else through these drills. Then we go over to the NGS table and they're like, oh yeah, no, he was legitimately slower than everybody else at doing the actual football stuff. And that is just so valuable, because if you're quote unquote slow through the gauntlet, and people think the gauntlet is about like how many balls can you catch? It's not about that. It's how fast can you go through the gauntlet and still confidently catch balls, staying on a line, not being able to look at exactly where you're running, having to constantly switch your head back and forth. It's about, do you have the body control to stay on the correct line, which is valuable for, seeing if a guy can stay at the correct depth when he's running a crossing route without looking at it. Can you track a ball when only having, half second to see it through because you're turning your head? And can you do all that at your max speed? Doesn't matter if you can run 21 miles an hour in a straight line with no opposition. Can you run 21 miles an hour in the gauntlet? And there are guys that were absolutely flying through it, like, say, Jimmy Horn, who had the fastest gauntlet speed. And then you look at Luther Burden, who's a much more highly regarded prospect, just kind of loping through it. And you're like, I don't think he trusts himself to do it at full speed, let alone all the other drills too. So like that kind of stuff is so valuable, because we can feel it on the field. Like we can see it on the field, and then we can walk over to the table on the side and be like, hey, like, does the data back up, this feeling that we had? And they're like, yes, it actually does. So again, I feel like just being down there was so valuable, because it helps us just parse out the differences between these guys directly head to head.
Again, it's the eye test, or what we call the tape test, whatever, versus time, speed, and being able to go over and say, in a quantifiable way, are these the same? Is my eye that good, or is my eye fooling me? And I remember turning to you after Tez Johnson ran the go route and said, man, I wish we could just clip part of his go route out and make that his 40, because it felt faster. And it turns out it was the exact same speed. He hit his full speed, his full track speed, doing football drills. And that is like, yeah, it looks faster when he's cutting and running than it does when he's running in a straight line with everybody else and they're running faster than he is. So functional speed is a big thing. A big shout out to the Next Gen Stats team, not only for all the information and insights, but also the friendship and the use of their table. We got to plug in and recharge all our batteries and leave our backpacks there and get water. And they were extremely hospitable hosts for our time down on the field in Lucas Oil. So a huge shout out to them and helping us understand how all this data gets tracked, recorded, analyzed, checked, used. It's going to be, it already is, but it's going to be an even bigger and bigger piece as we go on of the entire evaluation process of every player. So learning about that on a firsthand basis and watching the people who are really at the forefront of that movement, doing their jobs right in front of us, was a great and I'd say very underrated part of our combine that really helped us have a greater understanding.
So the short answer, after spending 10 minutes on this or whatever it is yes, the combine drills do matter, just not for the reason that you think.
Yeah.
It's about seeing up close the difference when guys are going back to back, and you could really, really tell a difference. And it's also about getting the chip data through the drills. The 40, I would say, doesn't matter so much. The 10-yard split does. The jumps matter just because I think, those are even across everybody. So I think the jumps are like a more neutral measurement. So those are important. 3 cones and shuttles, honestly, I throw those out as well because they're done after the workout. So these guys are always super gassed by the time they're doing them. And like we were watching Drew Kendall, I think he did it like 6 times because he was trying to just get like the best possible time in the 5:10.5s. And again, his legs are burning. He just went through a full O-line workout. So like I kind of focus more on the pro day agility drills than the combine agility drills because it's just not fair to them. So again, there are certain things done on the field that really, really matter. And there's certain things that don't, in my opinion. Before we leave the field topic, I do want to bring up one last note. So when we first walked out there, I think on Monday, a few days before the drill started, right? And you and I have been on NFL fields before, and we're so used to, the black rubber pellets, that at least on the artificial fields, we're so used to the black rubber pellets. And one of the first things we noticed was we looked down, everything was brown. Like all the filler was brown. And we're like, oh, do they just get like different color rubber? And then, upon closer examination, it's like, oh no, this is cork. Come to find out through my conversations with people this week, Lucas Oil Field, when they redid the surface last summer before the Colts' first preseason game, they used a combination of ground up cork and coconut husks as their filler because there were concerns, not to go too deep down a rabbit hole, there were concerns about black rubber pellets, causing the fields to be hotter as far as surface temps go, which doesn't really matter for Indy because it's an indoor stadium. But also, apparently there's some like random high school in your neck of the woods up in Washington State that instead of using like actual field grade rubber was using like ground up old tires, which then got linked to cancer, I think, in some people that came in contact with it. And so the NFL was like, yo, we should probably try to use a different thing than black rubber. For better or for worse. And so Lucas Oil is one of the first NFL fields, maybe the first NFL field to move away from rubber filler more into cork and coconut husks. And I'll be honest, I'm not sure I like that very much because guys were slipping and sliding all over the place. And I think this is not a consequence, a byproduct of this new filler is that when you're running these drills back to back to back and guys are stopping and cutting in the same place over and over and over again, that cork builds up really quickly. And it is a lot slipperier and, dare I say, bouncier than the black rubber pellets were. And so when you guys were watching the field drills at home and you're seeing guys go down constantly, it's because of that. And so part of me thinks like, should cork be used as a filler on an NFL field? Because I worry about, guys where it's like, oh, I got to wear longer spikes for this instead. It's like, well, that can lead to even worse issues if guys are planting so hard and their knees and ankles give out. So again, this wasn't a planned part of the show, but I wanted to bring it up to you to get your opinion on it. Cork and coconut husks, yay or nay?
It's cool looking, and I'm sure if you have a field outside, say in your neck of the woods in Southern California, I would love running on that stuff compared to the black pellet fields because they do get really hot. They radiate heat in the middle of the day. So the heat management part, I think, would be great. Obviously, as you said, that doesn't really matter in Indy. I didn't have a huge opinion on it because I'm not running on the field. We saw a bunch of slippage. I wonder if that's cleat adjustment, right? When you go to a new style of field, if you are going to, shoe companies are going to work with athletes to say, hey, what grips the best on this? And what is that balance between too much and too little? I don't think the cleats that work really well on black rubber pellets work well on cork. We saw that. So I think that may be a technological advancement. My opinion of it changed on day 3 when I laid down to take a shot with my tripod. I had this little tripod. I got this great new little gimbal. It's not very tall, and I was like, well, I'm gonna have to lie down on my elbows here and get this shot. Great shot. That stuff's pretty sharp. Like, it doesn't feel great when you're laying down there and low crawling around trying to make sure you got the shot. And I was like, man, this stuff's kind of pokey. It's not sure I'd want to be sliding across this at full speed, in pads with somebody, who just tackled me, grinding me into it. Don't think I would like that at all. So I think we'll certainly see guys wear even more tape on their forearms on fields like that because it's kind of sharp when you're sliding through it. So I like the fact that it might be a little bit more environmentally friendly. The mix is pretty hydrophobic. Again, for fields that are outside, it's not going to hold water. And it's really interesting as we see fields advance to the sort of next level of fillers. Do I feel like it's done? No, I feel like it's a step in the right direction in several areas. And in other areas, hey, you're going to have to adjust the footwear because guys did not have the kind of traction that they wanted during the combine.
One quick note, and then we'll get right back to the show. You guys are very familiar with Manscaped at this point because they've supported us forever. But they did just release a brand new addition to their grooming line that you might be interested in called the Chairman Pro, which is an old school electric foil shaver that can give you a professional shave right at home. You can use either the skin-safe 4-blade foil for a smooth finish, or if you want a stubble look, they have multiple options for the stubble trimmer to give you either a 1 to 2 day look or a 3 to 4 day look, depending on your preference. It's also waterproof, so you can use it in the shower if you want, and it makes it easier to clean too because you can just rinse it under the sink. It also, of course, has an LED spotlight so you can see every hair you're trying to shave, and it has up to 75 minutes of runtime. So if you're in need of a new shaver to maintain your stubble or to have a fresh and smooth face every single day, check out the Chairman Pro at Manscaped. And of course, check out everything else they have to offer too, whether it's body trimmers, lotion, shave gels, nose hair trimmers. I mean, you name it, they have it when it comes to grooming. You can see it all at manscaped.com. And if you use promo code BOOTLEG, you'll also get a 20% off discount and free shipping on your order. Again, that is manscaped.com, promo code BOOTLEG. That will give you 20% off and free shipping on whatever you get. Thank you to Manscaped for sponsoring today's show. And with that, let's get back to it. Shifting focus back to players, by the way, because we couldn't do this whole show without talking about who actually benefited from Combine Week. Keep in mind, this is going to be different than our 10 gem specials because we always do 10 gems on offense and 10 gems on defense, which is like our favorite players of the class, right? So this is different. This is more just talking about guys who, really, really took advantage of the opportunity and had a tremendous Combine Week. And we, there's no formal structure to this. It's more so just throwing out guys that really, really helped themselves. For me, I kind of want to start with offensive line, just because that's the most recent day in my head. And it's also, I think, the day that people watched the least of. Mm-hmm. So, maybe we can kind of help fill in some gaps for people that missed it. Gray Zabel was phenomenal. Dare I say, ridiculous. Jared Wilson, equally ridiculous. Like, those two guys are just absurd movers. As far as interior offensive linemen go, whether it's center or guard, I don't really care. Probably center, I would say, more for Wilson. I think it's his more natural spot, but you could sign me up for him playing guard. And Gray Zabel, I think, is just everything. He played tackle in college, but he can play whatever. He's like a true 5-spot offensive lineman. I think Zabel solidified himself as a first rounder. I think Wilson got himself in conversation to be in the first round. And then conversely, seeing those guys go through those drills, next to Tyler Booker, who's been seen as a lock first rounder this entire draft process and really, this whole year, he was one of the guys where, again, seeing them up close do the same movements from the same angle, I actually came away unimpressed with him. And, comparing him to these elite athletes that are his contemporaries, he didn't test particularly well. But again, we talked about how, testing numbers and field speed can lie to you. His field speed wasn't good either. And I came away from that day, and one of my first thoughts was, I don't think I could take him in the first round. I think he has a niche role that he would be very good in. We bring up like power guards, which is basically a guard who can maul people off the line of scrimmage. Don't expect him to pull that much. Don't expect him to reach block that much. Just line up there and fight somebody. I think he can be that kind of power guard. I think if you're trying to get him to be something other than that, or rather more scheme diverse than that, I don't think he's athletic enough to do it. And I don't think I would have come to that conclusion unless I also got to see what a more versatile interior offensive lineman really looks like when they're moving around, whether it's Zabel, Wilson, I would even say Joshua Gray. Like, that was very, very instructive for me.
I'll say there's a couple of ways to win at the combine, also a couple of ways to lose at the combine. One of the ways to win at the combine is to come in as a highly regarded prospect and test out of your mind. It just checks boxes. We talk about that all the time. It's confirmation. I think this guy's really good. I think this guy's really athletic or fast or a great mover. Yes, yes, and yes. Okay, that is a way to win. It solidifies your status. Another way to win is to come in as a lightly regarded or not talked about prospect that a lot of people haven't gotten to or is currently down the board, maybe didn't have the greatest year, your last year in college because of a coaching change, a system fit, an injury, whatever else. Come in and test extremely well, middle of the class or better. And then people will turn their heads and say, hey, I need to go home and take a look at this guy. That is also a way to win at the combine. Ways to lose at the combine are conversely true. Come in as a top-ranked prospect and test horribly. Again, it is only one day. It is only part of the evaluation process. But if you test historically bad at the combine, people are going to have questions and go back and recheck their assumptions. They're going to recheck your tape. Instead of just giving you the confirmation check, they're going to go, did I miss something? Is there something that was covering this up, whether it was scheme or something else, maybe help from another position? And the other way is to fail medically, which happens to guys every year. They get red flagged. They go in, get checked, and comes out, and, oh, I didn't know I didn't have an ACL. Like, oh, okay. Do teams care about that?
Look at Abdul Carter, went in for medical checks, and it's like, oh, by the way, you had a break you didn't even realize.
Yeah, a stress reaction. A lot of conversation about what a stress reaction was at the combine. A lot of people without medical degrees arguing about that over beers. Fun stuff. The other one is to just look several ticks below your contemporaries doing the same thing. And that can limit your versatility, which I think is what we're talking about with Tyler Booker. Now, Tyler Booker, I would start with the tape, and the tape is rock solid. He has years of SEC tape of throwing around some of the best defensive linemen in the country. I would start there. This does not mean Tyler Booker is a bad player. This means if you want him to do certain things and move outside of that envelope, you're not going to get as much as you are from some of these other guards. So if that's a big part of your system, if that's something you do all the time and have expectations for, we say it all the time on this show, fit is very, very important in the draft process. We usually say it for quarterbacks, wide receivers. It's for everybody, and it includes guards. If he gets drafted in the wrong system and they're asking him to, like you said, do big pull blocks 10, 15 yards out where he's got to keep up with some of the most athletic people on the planet, it's not going to be his best look. He's not going to be able to do it. Now, if he gets in a phone booth with those guys, I'd like to pay my respects to their families because he's an absolute beast in close quarters. So it's not that he's a bad player. It's just you see this drill after drill, set after set, and it goes very, very quickly. It's these reps last less than 5 seconds for every player, and they go through anywhere between 20 and 40 players one after another, and then they move drills very quickly. The coaches keep these guys on the hop, and it is to make sure that they have high energy through the whole thing and just not waste people's time because they're long days anyways. And you can say this guy is good at that. Yep. Oh, that guy struggled. That guy struggled badly. Some of the tackle drills, I felt that. Foot speed, got to get him up and get him down. And some guys just cannot get him up and get him down.
There's a lot less good tackles in this draft than I thought after watching some of those guys move. I was like, that's a guard, that's a guard, that's a guard, that's a center. Boy, tackle class a lot thinner than I expected.
Yeah, and again, that's something you're going to get going through this and saying, hey, I have a question mark. I'm not sure where he fits. After watching him run against all his contemporaries and move, they move in position-specific drills that I think are pretty good to give you an idea, again, of a wide range of things they might be required to do in the league. So talking about guys like Jared Wilson, he ran fast. He's not on this list because he ran fast. A 4.84 with a 1.72 split or 1.72 10-yard split. Outstanding time. I was way more impressed with him in the drills. We talk about receivers all the time, and I use this phrase owl-headed, right? Owls, when they're tracking their prey, their head doesn't move and their body moves around it. You can see receivers that are like that. Their head doesn't move when they're tracking the ball. Everything else moves, and they're able to catch it. He has like owl hips. He has the most stable swiveling base for an interior lineman, and quick, too. Again, that athleticism comes into play, but he is able to swivel and move and stay so square, so flat, stay so, over his toes, where he can really move in any direction very, very quickly. I was blown away by that in the movement drills. Definitely came away with a sort of improved opinion of him, not just because he ran fast, but because he moved well in position-specific drills. So he's certainly one of the guys I think, quote unquote, won the combine.
Speaking of, silent hunters like owls, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up Malachi Starks, who kind of got slagged a little bit this past week because his, again, testing numbers were not super impressive. I think his RAS was like 5.5, which is average at best. And I'll read off the exact numbers because it doesn't sound like an elite athletic profile. He's a little under 6'1". He's $197, 33 in the vert. Shuttle of 4.45, which is 6th percentile, by the way. 3-cone of 7.26. 4.5 flat in the 40 with a 1.56 10-yard split. The 1.56 10-yard split is actually pretty good. 31.5-inch arms, 9.5 hand. Like that sounds like a day 3 athletic profile for a safety. And yet, when you and I were watching him go through the drills, he was literally silent. And we were standing feet away from him, and I could not hear his steps. Like, he is truly the definition of nimble. Whether you want to call him a cat, an owl, like anything that just silently stalks its prey. That is my comp for him. And it was uncanny because you're seeing other guys go through the drills and it's like piston feet and like they're kicking up cork and coconut husks and they're super violent and super explosive. And he was still covering the same amount of ground. It's just you couldn't hear him. Like, that's how much control he has over his body. That's how efficient a mover he is, that he can redirect his weight instantly and effortlessly. And that was reflected in, again, the chip data, which is very different than the timed speed. And if you're going through all 7 of the drills that they put the safeties through, he was the he was the fastest in 5 of those 7. So if you're looking at the short shuttle drill, which again, he had 6th percentile in terms of short shuttle time, but he had the fastest speed, 15.24 miles an hour. He was fastest in the W drill. He was fastest in the gauntlet drill. He was fastest in the line drill and fastest in the Terrell Austin drill. And he looked like it on the field. Like, I was blown away by his drill work. And then we don't have the workout numbers in front of us when we're down there. And I looked at his numbers later that night and I'm like, there's no way he's this bad of an athlete. And that's how you parse it out. You look at the football athleticism versus the time speeds and they tell 2 entirely different stories. So when it comes to Malachi Starks, I'm kind of ignoring the time speeds. I'm kind of ignoring the measurements. I'm looking at the football speed. I'm looking at the tape. I'm looking at the pedigree. And I know, sure, we can have the conversation of like, well, you should do that for Tyler Booker as well. But like, the difference for me was Malachi Starks looked like the best DB on the field, and he had the chip data to back it up. Tyler Booker, I would not make that argument. But like, this is the value of these drills, is you're getting multiple reference points for how well these guys move that look at it from multiple angles, and you can make an informed decision with as much context as possible.
Yeah, outside of the chip data, this was a classic eye test. Starks would go, next safety would go. Man, Starks' feet are faster. Like, they're just faster. They're quicker. He, like you said, he can redirect. He was just more explosive through those drills. And when you're looking at functional football speed, we would say this about guys. Hey, he doesn't test well, doesn't necessarily run well in a straight line. You put pads on him, he's faster. You put the ball in his hands, he's faster. That's the old school sort of scoutism for that. When you put him in a drill where he's making football motions, he was faster than the guy next to him over and over and over again. And then the chip data backed that up 5 out of 7 times. So there is a real value of comparative analysis for things that matter in football. And for years, people have said 40 doesn't matter in football. The bench press doesn't matter in football. And in certain ways, they're right. But going out and doing football things does matter in football. And when you see guys that are really good at doing that against some of the very best athletes in the world, rep after rep after rep, your brain tends to trust that. And like you, I'm going to say less about the overall athletic profile, and I'm going to say more about, yeah, but out there doing football things, he was clearly better than this guy and this guy and this guy. And Malachi Starks fits into that category. On the other side, guy that had tape that we really like coming in, another safety from South Carolina, Nick Emanwari. We knew he was going to test well.
Yeah, he did.
This is not a surprise. The surprise was, how well is well? He destroyed the athletic testing. He had an off-the-charts great combine, and this is what I talked about how to win. We knew he was going to be good, and he was great. 6'3", 220, 438 in the 40, 149 10-yard split at that size.
It's
and
not natural.
43-inch vert, which I was 10 feet away for. I put up a video of it on Twitter. It just looked like he was going to keep going up. And again, when you think about an athlete who's 6'3" with long arms and big hands and can jump almost 4 feet straight up, the amount of space he takes up in a quarterback's viewfinder is immense. Like, it is greater, far greater than a story in a building. Like, that's bananas. And again, this was just a case of, hey, yeah, I was talking to Jordan Reed before we got there. We were laying out some guys. We thought, oh, this guy's going to test well. Who do you think's going to test well? This guy. We mentioned Nick. He was right by the vertical jump when Nick went off. We looked at each other and went, oh, he said he's going to be good, but damn, that's bananas. Like, that just
like, can he catch? Can we make him a receiver? Because, like,
I don't know. Does he have a future as a tight end at this point? Power slot? I don't care. Tremendous athlete, good tape, unreal combine. Definitely one of the winners coming out of Indianapolis.
Now, the quote-unquote main reason why people say the combine is valuable, main reasons, I should say, are medicals and interviews, right? And we're not really privy to medicals and interviews unless, say an agent is giving an injury to Schefter to tweet out to try to give context for why a guy isn't working out, like what happened with Abdul Carter. So most of the time, we're not going to hear about how these guys' medical checks go. But that is incredibly important. And obviously, interviews are incredibly important. And sometimes we'll hear rumblings about who interviewed well and who didn't, but also it's kind of tough to trust it sometimes because I'm like, am I getting fed something for a reason? And so we don't typically publicly disclose what we hear about those because we don't know. Like, we truly don't know. But those are obviously arguably the two main reasons why the combine is important. You get everybody in a central location. There's easily accessible hospitals. There's a bunch of MRI machines. There's dozens upon dozens of doctors. There's more hotels than I can count with more side rooms than I can count where you can, kind of get pulled in for one of your 18-minute interviews with these teams. You have the Madden team that's under the stadium scanning you into the game, assuming you're actually signed your NFLPA contract by that point, which some guys haven't. But you get scanned into the game. You do all your media obligations, and then you do your drills, and it's a great centralized location to just handle all of that as conveniently as possible, right? Because this is a massively inconvenient thing to do, so you might as well do it as conveniently as you possibly can. And once again, after Combine Week in Indianapolis, I come away with my main impression that you cannot, like truly cannot move this event away from that city. I don't think there's any other city in the country that could do it like that have, again, easily accessible hospitals. It's super walkable. Everything's connected. And I mean that literally, like all the buildings are connected with skyways. You don't actually have to walk outside in the cold if you really don't want to. Like you can walk for miles and miles and miles indoor from building to building. Like it's a remarkably well laid out city. All the hotels, like the people are nice. Like Hoosier hospitality, absolutely a real thing. You know, the food is good. There's enough bars and restaurants where people can kind of get together and, I don't want to say tamper, but let's just say hypothetically work out contract details.
Share. Let's just say share.
Share. Like I keep hearing like, oh, you're going to put the Combine in LA. And I say this as a Southern Californian. Don't. Like, don't. It's the dumbest thing you could possibly do because LA is so spread out and is like the definition of inconvenience as a region of the country. Like there's people who live west of the 405 that if their best friend is east of the 405, they might see them once a quarter. And you're trying to get all these hundreds of prospects in town to go all over LA and do medical checks and interview. Like, what are we doing here? Like it's a bad idea. I hope they don't do it. They shouldn't do it. Indianapolis is the perfect city for this event, and it should stay there forever.
It's a tremendously convenient location. Again, our second run through the Combine, we had a much better sense of scale, of pacing, of where things were, of where we needed to be and how long it would take to get there. And just you continue to hear multiple stories of, you know, scouts and team folks that have gone to Indianapolis for 10, 15, 20, 25 years. And they're like, I go to the airport, I get a ride from the airport to my hotel. I do not rent a car. I don't need one. I walk everywhere I need to be. Everything I need is within easy reach. And then I take another, you know, cab ride or Uber ride back to the airport, and that's it. And I had a tremendous experience. And it's been going that way for years. You hear very few grumbles while you're there about the way things are organized, the way things are timed, the way things are located. A lot of people with sore feet, but that's just because you're walking and having a massive convention center right next to an NFL stadium. And I mean, literally linked by tunnels. So again, you don't need to walk outside. Gives it a tremendous head start, and then link that convention center to a whole bunch of hotels with skyways and easy access to bars, restaurants, places to grab lunch, places to grab coffee. All of those things are occurring all day and all night long. And Indianapolis holds this event as well as I think, like you said, any city in the country could. And then there's the people. And I am so struck by the people. They're all so nice. And I don't mean just like a couple people. If you're there for as long as you were, 9 days, you meet hundreds of people that are checking your bag to go into the media center, people that are serving you food, people that are driving you around, people that are telling you which way to go when you're lost, people that made your breakfast. Like, it doesn't matter. There's just tons and tons and tons of people. And everybody that I ran into was not just like, okay, or neutral, or didn't give me a hard time. They went out of their way to make it nice for me. You and I went out to breakfast, and it was a bit of a late breakfast, maybe call it a brunch, whatever it was.
Shout out to Milktooth, by the way. Delicious.
Oh, yeah. No, Milktooth. There's so many good restaurants there, but Milktooth, a level above. But this was a different restaurant, and it was sort of in between. We'd gotten up and done one thing. We were grabbing food and getting ready to go to the media center. And, you know, our server came by one more time and said, hey, you know, can I refresh your coffee? And I said, no, I probably shouldn't. I've had enough. She goes, can I make you one to go? And I was like, is that a thing? You're going to make me a cup of coffee to like head out to the Uber? And, you know, because you know, I obviously need one. I certainly look like it. But it was like that all week. And it's a very long week. You work a lot of hours. It's physically demanding. You carry stuff all day. You walk all day. You're on your feet. You're talking the whole time. And to have people be that nice over and over again really carries the event and makes it, I'll just say, possible. Like if you're in a really aggressive or passive aggressive city for 9 days dealing with all that on top of everything else, I don't think I'd want to go back. Like Indianapolis, before going there, I don't know that I would have said, hey, that's a place I would go hang out. It is absolutely a place I would go hang out. It's really nice. It'd be fun to see it in the summer sometime when it's not, 20 degrees and blowing. It'd be awesome.
Well, if anybody from the Colts is watching this and wants to invite us out for training camp to see your wonderful city in the summer, I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of protests from me or EJ. So, let's make that happen. As for everybody else who's watching this, non-Colts employees, reminder, if you're a patron for the Bootleg Football Podcast, we have a whole bunch of patron exclusive content coming this draft season. We have, episodes that are dedicated to doing prospect breakdowns, whether it's Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, Chris Paul Jr. I know pretty soon here, we're probably going to get one up on Jahad Campbell, who, by the way, didn't even talk about him today, had a phenomenal combine, ridiculous combine. Like the testing matched the tape with him for sure. There's hundreds and hundreds of prospects, so we'll be doing a whole bunch of exclusive prospect breakdowns on the Patreon. We have prospect interviews that are going to keep going up throughout draft season, again, like with Kenneth Grant and Chris Paul and Savon Revel and Colin McCord, who might end up being QB3. And, a whole bunch of interviews coming your way. Talk to Jahdae Barron, talk to Travis Hunter. So those are really more shorts. I might just get those up as shorts here. Again, so much. And then, oh, by the way, interviews with a whole bunch of our friends around the draft industry. See if we can get DJ back on, Mina, the whole usual bootleg draft season crew. So subscribe if you're not subscribed. You have a lot coming your way. And EJ, any final words before we get out of here?
Let's get it. This is the best time of year.
It is. I think we only have like 50 days left until the draft as of time of recording. So we're going to try to make use of those 50 days as best we can. Again, see you guys back here very soon. And until then, later.